Welcome, I'm Darren, and I'll be your guide today as I rank the worst overall insert card designs for 1993. When I did my list for the baseball cards, I grouped all the O-Pee-Chee cards together because there were three. There was O-Pee-Chee and O-Pee-Chee Premier, and I grouped them together as one because I just didn't want to parse them out and figure out which one. And that worked well for the baseball list, but as I was putting together this list, I realized I needed to separate them out because there's O-Pee-Chee, which has two inserts which are basically the same thing, and the Premier one it's very different. And so by separating them out, it changes what was for baseball the worst design in my book, because the O-Pee-Chee Premier really raised the other two in comparison. So on this list, I have three honorable mentions, and then I have the list of the five worst designs. And the first honorable mention to talk about is the O-Pee-Chee Premier insert. I'm not even going to tell you what the name of the insert is because I really don't care. These aren't great. But I got to give credit for the O-Pee-Chee Premier insert because in the case of this card, it's actually not the worst thing in the world. It's actually pretty decent. This is a card that looks like a perfectly decent 1992 parallel card. Maybe even kind of a cool 1991 design. Kind of, it's weird for 1991, but for 1992, that's kind of where it looks. It looks like it fits. And then when I look at it here in 1993, it looks like a holdover. Like, yeah, okay, it's you're not really getting with it, which very much was the case with Topps and their O-Pee-Chee set. So, okay, I give them credit for that, but at the end of the day, I look at the card and I go, it's perfectly decent. I don't mind it. Having this as a part of my collection, it's just one of those odd cards that doesn't fully fit in, that looks nice enough, and so I'm glad that it's in there, but not good enough that I want to remember it and pull it aside. But a card collection is full of so many cards, and this is one that has its own distinct quality that's kind of fun. So, or not kind of fun as much as it's kind of cool to have it. That's the way I put it. So it's perfectly fine, or it's reasonably fine enough, but it's certainly not an inspiring card. And then the next one I want to talk about of the honorable mentions is the Score Boys of Summer baseball card, which in this case, this was what I listed as the worst baseball card, but again, in comparison more to the O-Pee-Chee Premier card. So the problem with the Boys of Summer card is very simple. It's got a lot of nice elements. I like the color of the green at the bottom. I like the color of the orange around the outside. And I like the silhouetting of the player. I like how, or almost silhouetting of the player. The way that he's isolated on the card, I think that's pretty nice. The card back, to me, looks more like a Score Hot Rookies card from 1990 or 1991. Perfectly decent, but nothing special. But the card all comes down to the fact that their whole design theme is that sun that is, my retinas are already steaming from the power of it. It is so overpowering. So I really don't like it, except the fact is I like certain aspects about the card, so it looks to me like a well-composed card with a dumb idea that ruins it in the middle. So this is an awkward one for me, but the thing is that while it is uncomfortable to look at, it's not a frustration to look at. I think that's the best way to put it. Both of these cards that I just talked about are well crafted. Overall, they're very well crafted and they have some interest to them. And that's the only thing they have going for them, which is why they absolutely work on a list of the worst card designs. But boy, the next ones that we've got to look at are, they don't rise to this level. Starting with the Donruss Hockey World Junior Champions cards. Or Junior World, I think it's, yeah, World Junior Championship. These cards are just solid chrome. And that's a problem because this type of chrome, it overpowers the card and makes it really difficult to see the card and really difficult to photograph the card too. There are some cards that kind of work with this chroming of the whole surface, but you've got to have really strong, distinct elements to be able to come through because the chroming of the card completely overpowers. The advantage these cards have is that look, you cannot see the player at all. I mean, you truly can't. But the backdrop, it has some interest to it, and it's all red for the Canadian team or all blue for the US team. So whenever I look at the card, I don't even see the player, but I see the backdrop, and I immediately associate with some Olympics or world team of each of the nations. That's very obvious. And it has some interesting elements with the top of the map too. So that also kind of gets my attention. So there are things about the card that pique my interest and they get me a bit engaged. They're not going to hold my attention, but at least there are qualities about the card that do have a positive to it. I wish they hadn't completely chromed the surface, but that's what we got, what we're stuck with here. So it's not great, but again, it has some interest. Now, when I move into the list of the 5 worst, at number 5, now we're getting back to the O-Pee-Chee baseball. So this is what the actual O-Pee-Chee set, the inserts, looked like. And the two are basically the same. It's just, I really don't like what Topps did with O-Pee-Chee as a distinct brand. When it was the Canadian version of Topps, it was a different logo. But with this stuff, I don't know what they were doing. I've never gotten it. I've never liked O-Pee-Chee cards, O-Pee-Chee standalone card sets. The design here doesn't even look like a holdover from 1992, because when I look at this, I think, well, Don Russ was so much better in 1992. And when I think about 1991, 91 cards tended to have more flash to them, except for when you get over to Bowman. Bowman was pretty bleak, but for the most part, this card doesn't really fit in any era of cards. It is just too simplistic. It looks to me more like a minor league card. That's about the best description for it. It's got the band up at the top that doesn't do anything for me. A little bit of text down at the bottom, which, okay. The logo on the card is, again, okay. The white border around the outside doesn't do a thing. And so the white border wants for there to be something in the card to do something, anything, but nothing does. That's the thing. This is bleak. It is bland. And bland does not mean worst in the world, not by a long shot. It means, okay, well, they crafted it well. They just didn't put any interest in it. The rest of the ones I'm going to be looking at, they have a lot more interest, but they're not nearly as well crafted. Starting with the Parkhurst reprints. And the Parkhurst reprints are reprints of old Parkhurst cards. This is a really cool idea, and I love that they tried to do this. In fact, O-Pee-Chee did do something similar to this. And what we saw with Topps in 1996, where they were doing this with whole histories of players with their Topps cards, and then Topps had also been doing archives, except for one major difference, which is the fact that in all these other cases, the card companies, usually Topps, did do a good job of trying to make the cards seem not necessarily crisp as much as clear to read. The Parkhurst cards, these cards, they are so fuzzy and out of focus in most cases that to me this looks like a copy of a copy, which is not as sharp as the original. There's no better way of putting it. It really does look like this is just such a horrible recreation, like a company that, like somebody's using a Xerox machine at best. It doesn't look professional, and that's the thing. Even if these cards are the way the original cards were, and I still have not gone back and looked at what the original cards looked like. I don't care to. Whenever I look at this card, I'm not interested, because to me, it just looks cheap, pure and simple. And that's just not good. An insert should never look like a cheap knockoff by a company that has no right making cards. This is a major card brand. You'd expect something more, but we didn't get anything more. So yeah, again, very disappointing card. But at number 3, I've got the Jam Session basketball cards, specifically the Slam Dunk Heroes. Now, I could have put Game Day on this list. I decided not to. I just wanted to put one Jam Session card on. This is easily the lesser of all of them. And I get the idea. The idea is that you're taking the background and you're using kind of like a Photoshop distortion with a couple of colors. It is an artistic concept that I've never gotten, I've never appreciated. I just don't know why people continue to do it. It really is lousy. It's a lousy approach. But even worse than that is the colors are not good colors. They're jarring, they're garish. If you're going to do that, do it on a small card, not a big card like this where you have all this real estate. It just makes it even worse. I really don't like this card. And the jam session inserts, all of them were pretty mediocre, but this one bothers me really deep down in my gut. So I'm definitely not a fan of this card. And at number 2, I've got also basketball, I've got the Fleer Ultra Award winners, which suffers from the same problem as the Don Russ World Junior Championship cards. It's a chrome card, and chrome, just like I said, it almost never works. And a card like this, it's even more problematic. I do note that at least the players are not chromed over, so they stand very distinct. But whenever I look at this card, I have to try to figure out what it is, and it takes a while to even read the text on the side, because that's the thing. The spectral radiance of the background is kind of cool. The text that says award winners is actually kind of cool. This is a card that could look pretty decent if it didn't have the chrome on it. All you need to do is look at the back and see that, yeah, it's not the same, but that's kind of how it would read, which would be a lot better. But the chrome surface, it just overpowers to the point where you really can't see what's going on with the card. And like I said, it is so difficult to read award winners on this card. At least allow us to very clearly see what the set is. And this just absolutely doesn't do this. But it is not the worst card. Definitely not the worst card, because that is the Leaf Hockey Gold Leaf All-Star cards. So this idea of having just a big block of whatever, and then a harsh jump cut to the image up above with a full bleed, it's tough to pull off. Score did try and kind of pulled it off with a card where they had some more elements in the card to kind of tie things together and make it like a theme. It's not a good looking card, but it works well enough. Here it's a complete failure, because you have that box with the gold holofoil, which just makes things even worse. It does have the text, which is nice, but the gold holofoil is an accent. It's not the whole theme. And if you did anything like a band in between, or a box around the outside of the holofoil or something, it would help out a lot. But the gold holofoil, it goes and then it has no transition to the picture, and it just kind of dies. At least with a solid color, there is a clear edge, but this doesn't have an edge, which is part of what makes the overpowering radiance of all the gold foil, or all the gold holofoil, even worse, is the fact that it just kind of sort of ends, or does it, it's like inconclusive. And they do have a design element on the card to counter to it, which is the logo for the Gold Leaf All-Stars, which to their great credit is gold foil, not gold holofoil, which makes it easier to see when you can see it. But it does not quite succeed in offering a counterpoint to the box down at the bottom. This card looks unfinished. It looks like there was supposed to be something added that was never added. And when a card looks unfinished, that's not good. But this card definitely looks unfinished. So to me, this is the worst insert card of 1993 across all 4 sports. So that's at least how I compose the list. You might notice there are no football cards on here, and I'm pretty sure that's not just because I'm a football guy. I'm pretty sure because the football cards are, well, the action-packed quarterback cards are borderline. I was close on that. But other than that, I think that these are all pretty solid. So let me know if you feel that there was something else that should have been on the list, or if there's an order difference, or however you want to look at it. Please, leave comments down below talking about that. And if you have not subscribed to my channel, I do urge you to do so. And thank you very much for watching.